Welcome to Fun and Fundraising, everybody, the podcast where we talk with people behind top nonprofit galas and signature fundraising events to showcase how they positively transform their communities. I'm your host, Rob Giardinelli, and I'm really excited to have two special guests on today. So our first guest is Denton Bricker, and he is the Director of Events and Volunteer Services for the Dallas Symphony Orchestra. And then we also have Patrick Means, who is the event chair for the organization's upcoming signature fundraising event, which is the 2024 Dallas Symphony Orchestra Gala. And what's interesting about this event is it's an event that's in multiple acts, and we haven't really ever done a subject and a subject matter about that particular topic. So I'm really excited to dive a little bit more deeply, not just into the Dallas Symphony Orchestra, but what makes that particular gala one of Dallas's, for many, many years, one of their most anticipated and best run fundraising galas in North Texas. So with that, Denton and Patrick, welcome. And I'm so excited to have you both on as guests today. So Denton, I'd love for you to talk a little bit about what the mission of the Dallas Symphony Orchestra is.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. Thrilled to be here. The official mission of the Dallas Symphony Orchestra is to inspire and change lives through musical excellence, which, I think speaks not only to our performances here at the Morton H. Meyerson Symphony Center that the general public might see, but also through our very impactful education initiatives, which transform the lives of the participants and their families.
That's fantastic. So it sounds like there's a really wide range of musical services that the organization offers, and I think that's really great that that you all have, and you also have in the Meyerson Center, really just a world-class venue. And anyone who hasn't gone to it, I mean, you haven't lived until you've heard a musical performance there. I mean, it really is a special place. And
Absolutely.
absolutely. And I'd love to hear, about, I'm always fascinated, especially with event chairs such as you, Patrick, as to how you all get involved with an organization. What makes you really say yes? Because I'm sure that someone like you probably gets asked to, chair and be involved with lots of things. So would you talk a little bit and share a little bit about how you initially got involved with the Dallas Symphony Orchestra?
Sure, and thanks again, Rob, for having us. So my situation was interesting. I moved to Dallas in the middle of COVID. It was September 2020, and I had an employee who is still working for me, but he said, Patrick, I've been on the board at the Symphony. You're new here in town. I want a partner in crime to continue to promote the arts and really what we've been doing here. And so at the time, we really leveraged the DSO for great client events, an opportunity to, enjoy great music and obviously get to know our clients a little bit better. And so he introduced me to the CEO at that time, Kim told me, and she said, Patrick, here's something that I'd like for you to think about as well. We're trying to get leaders in the community together to talk about, being on boards, specifically boards in the art community. Would you be interested? And be a great way for you to meet other business leaders in the community. So selfishly, my initial contact with the DSO was through an employee, and then for me to kind of get to know some other folks in a new city. What's come of that is really getting to know great people like Denton, obviously becoming a fan of the music that is played by the symphony. I've got some special moments, specifically got married at the Meyerson last December. So lots of tie-ins to the Meyerson and Dallas Symphony for me personally, and of course, chairing the event this year. But it all started just by an invitation from two special people.
Wow, I love hearing that story. That's a really interesting one. And I especially like, that you're newer to the area, but you really got involved with the organization, kind of with all, all in, with both feet in, and just jumped into the deep end of the pool. And I really admire that. You mentioned that you got married there. What about the Meyerson Center is so, like, what about it captivates you? So, because clearly you love that space in addition to loving the organization.
Yes. So there's a lot of context behind this story, but the simplest answer is I don't know of a more beautiful facility in the city of Dallas. just for the listeners, if you think of these, large windows across the facility that shine into the main atrium, which is where we had the wedding, in that area off the radial stairs, not actually in the Symphony Hall. But I wanted to really make this special for my wife. Initially, and this is the story, I won't get into details, it wasn't her first choice, but it became her first choice when I was able to make it work. And the Symphony was so accommodating. They literally put us in between two shows, Rob. They had their holiday show, one in the morning, one in the evening. We were right in the middle of it. But when you walk into the place, it's captivating how beautiful it is. The music and how the sound reverberates throughout is I can't even put it into words. And we actually had an opera singer, a harpist play. I mean, it was just magical. And then we had a great day, right? It wasn't too hot. It was, the right amount of sunlight. So it looked beautiful. So really, I say that to say, trying to utilize the relationships that I knew we had, really trying to give my spouse that special day, and knowing, it really was a place in town known for beautiful events. And for some people, their first time to experience that was why we chose it.
That's fantastic. And I love hearing, you're tied to the organization and to the space, and it makes it really easy to understand why and someone who comes in, especially, when you work for a company, many companies will support lots of different nonprofits, and there are certain ones that may be a little bit more near and dear. And it sounds like for a whole host of reasons, the Dallas Symphony Orchestra is one of those organizations. But I'd love to hear a little bit more. What makes you so passionate about music and the arts more broadly? What about music and art inspires you, professionally, personally, and creatively?
Sure. So I tell people music is one of the few things that just brings so many people together. And so, for me, I enjoy that, folks from all walks of life. So that'd probably be number one, right? How we can enjoy beautiful music, and that's all we're thinking about in that moment. And as I said, it brings folks from all walks of life together for that experience. But I've also, now that I've been in Dallas for several years, I've seen the economic impact, right, that it has, for the city. So having a vibrant arts community in Dallas, a city that I intend to live and work for a long time, is also helpful for me as a resident. So those would be the two things that come to mind.
That's fantastic. And that's all absolutely true. I mean, there are so many world-class, arts organizations throughout Dallas, and it's got such a vibrant and thriving art community. And, I know we're here, to talk about the upcoming gala. And Denton, I'd love to, address the next question to you. Talk a little bit about, because one thing about the DSO Gala is I have heard about it and I have known about it for many, many years. And it has always had a very loyal and very passionate following for that particular event. So what is a piece of advice you would give to a nonprofit looking to create a devoted following for their annual gala?
Well, I think first is tying the mission back to the event, the reason that we're really there, the mission, the cause, talking about its impact, raising awareness. I think our educational programs, I call it as one of the best kept secrets of the DSO. And then I think combining that with a unique, unforgettable experience for event attendees, not only with ambiance, which Patrick's talked about, the stunningness of the Meyerson, but also then you throw in the decor and the tables, the delicious dinner, providing a sense of community amongst event attendees. So it's like everybody is really excited to come back after the summer, and we're one of the first galas of the season, and they really get to connect with their friends and associates at an event like the DSO Gala.
Absolutely. And it is, because it is earlier on in the season, a lot of people who go there, and that really is one of the reasons. I had never even thought about that, but it's one of the first really, really big fundraising events of Dallas of the fall. And that's why people, one of the reasons, in addition to the wonderful organization pedigree of the organization and the beauty of the Meyerson, that draws so many people to it. And, I want to talk, I'm going to address the next question to Patrick. And, events really have, good galas have basically three legs on the stool. They have, a great organization behind them with people like Denton. They have a great event chair and a great leadership with someone like yourself. But that third part is really having a successful committee that helps drive the box office. And, it really does take a village to put on and host a really top tier fundraising gala. So, Patrick, I'd love for you to share how having a successful committee helps you carry out your vision for the DSO Gala.
Yeah, so I think two things come to mind. Number one, when you have a committee, which I'm fortunate to have, that shares in the same passion that you have, that's huge. And as I shared before, your question around, why music, why the arts, I'm certain I'm not the only one who feels that way. And so, when you have a collection of people who feel strongly about that, that is so beneficial, because then that everybody in the room wants to make it great, right? Because this is something that is also important to them. So that's the first thing that I would say has been incredibly beneficial for us to be able to have such a strong committee. Second is the relationships. Again, we're not the first. My wife and I are the first couple to chair this event. This has been going for 125 years almost. So we don't have to reinvent the wheel. But there's many folks that we're tapping on that have been gala chairs, committee chairs. They have strong relationships, right? They know what they're doing, and they know Denton and his team well, and so they also help us go out into the community, spread that message, use their relationships, their influence, right, to help tell that story, and also bring folks, to the event. And what I think is really exciting, Denton and I talked about this when we started this plan. I hate to use the word old school, new school, but you've got folks that who've known the DSO for a long time, right, have supported it. And then we're kind of the new school, my wife and I, again, not age related, just newer to Dallas. And we're getting to tell the story maybe to a different audience, right, who may not know, like Denton said, the work that they're doing in the community, also how great the event space is, and just how top-notch talent we have in the Symphony. So I think that's why this year is going to be so awesome. I think it's going to be such a great combination, right, of those new school, old school.
I love that you bring, the new and old elements, because, Dallas, like many cities in Texas, are rapidly growing cities. So there are a lot of new people coming in, and it's always really nice to see, Patrick, someone like you who really, wants to get involved and put their stamp on the community. I'd love to, kind of ask a follow-up question to that, on the being newer aspect. What advice would you give to somebody who's moving to a new city to find the right organization to give back to their new community, so that it does feel like your new home? Like you said, you wanted to make this your permanent home.
That is a great question. And I will tell you, just to be vulnerable a little bit here, Rob. So when I first moved to Texas, I moved to Austin, and I struggled, not because of the city, but just because I didn't put a lot of thought into what you just asked, to really find some meaningful things to be a part of, and relationships. I just thought, hey, I'm an extroverted guy. I'm around people a lot. This would be easy. And maybe just at the age of my life, it was a little more challenging. So, I would say what helped me was being intentional, right? Because I will say Dallas has a lot to offer, right? You can't say yes to everything, but I was intentional around the things that, were important to me, right? So, well, why did the Symphony make the list, right? Again, it was an initial introduction. However, it related to me because I played the violin for 6, 7 years as a child, right? So obviously there's a hinge there. Two, I just think about where it's located in the city, in the arts community. Like, you kind of want to be seen in that area. So that was a great way for me to, meet the influencers in the city. So that was a plus. And then third, again, once I learned about the impact that they were having in the community through young, strange, young musicians, that really did it for me, because I was fortunate, right, to be able to afford the instrument, to have the lessons at school. And a lot of the youth in these programs don't have those two things, right? And so I remember, playing an instrument taught me discipline. I learned about composers I would have never learned of without playing. And, there's just so many benefits to learning an instrument. So that's what made it personal to me, of why it made my list of where I wanted to invest, right? In addition to maybe 2 other organizations. So my advice would be, to answer your question, be intentional. Think about, what you want to accomplish being a resident, right? What civic commitments are important to you personally? And then how can it broaden, your overall, relationship network, if that is something that's really important to you.
I love that answer. And what I love about it, and I loved you sharing kind of the journey that you came to Austin first and you were intentional the next time around, and when you moved to Dallas. And, I always like to say that people are like, our cities are like people with personalities, and you tapped into certain aspects of what you like as you, and you found them and you meshed them with the aspects of the city. So I love hearing that story, because for me, it was as much about how you made friends with Dallas as a new resident as it was your own personal journey. And I really appreciated that journey and that, in that response. And, you can tell you've got a lot of passion. You've got a lot of really good, interesting ideas in taking this event forward as a newer resident of Dallas. And Denton, I want to address this next question to you. I want to hear a little bit about what's the secret to having a strong relationship, from a nonprofit perspective, with their event chair to really carry out the vision of the organization and really impact positively as many people as possible.
Yeah, also a solid question. I think it's really about forging a relationship first and foremost with your gala chairs or whoever you're approaching to ask to be, your signature event chairs. Making sure that they're not only familiar with the organization, but they're educated about the mission, that you're empowering them to lead, you're providing the support along the way, you're open to the creative ideas and the vision that they have for the event, and how can you help implement them. And then, providing a little subtle guidance here along the way. Patrick and Laura, they make it easy because they're kind, obviously charismatic, passionate, and again, going back to that synergy is just bringing so much new life, new energy into the process of the gala. And I'm honored to serve with them in this process. And I will also say that it's amazing that they're both trailblazers, and that they are not only, Patrick said previously, they're not the first couple to chair the gala, but they are our youngest, and they are the first couple of color. So trailblazers in their own right. And I think that's really powerful.
That really is powerful. And along with kind of what you said, that, so long as, you succinctly describe the 3 things that any event chair needs to have. They need to be kind, they need to be passionate, and they need to be charismatic. And that, if there is one organizational takeaway from anyone listening today, that is really the thing to listen to. And Denton, you really did just a beautiful job of, describing that. And, I want to turn back to Patrick here. So, a big part of the DSO, the success of the DSO Gala is that there's a one night only concert. And for those who aren't necessarily familiar with the symphony, sometimes there'll be one night only performances, but a lot of times there'll be, multi-night performances or over several nights. So talk a little bit about how the specialness of a one night only concert helps you, helps your wife and helps your committee attract major donors to attend and support the event.
Yeah, so this was something that I learned along the way. And there's two parts to the donors, Rob. There's your individual donors and there's your corporate or institutional donors, right? So for the individual donors, here's how, having a superstar like Lang helps, right? They love music, as we said before. They just are passionate about it. So if they know that they're going to have a chance to hear one of the best pianists in the world, on top of having this wonderful dinner that's going to support a good cause, they're going to be there, right? So I think that's huge, and we're fortunate that he'll be a part of that special evening with us. I think for corporate donors, right, their goal is to demonstrate, highlight their civic commitment to the communities where they're serving, and so they're smart as well, and they're thinking to themselves, oh, okay, well, if we know that there's going to be a lot of influential individual movers and shakers donors at this event, because of that, hey, here's a great time to make sure they see really loud and clear our commitment to the community in this way. So I think those two together really create that synergy that you're talking about.
Fantastic, fantastic answer and all really good points. And I'm glad that you talked about the difference between approaching an individual donor and a corporate donor, and just kind of the differences of what each of those individuals want, they want to support, but they may have different goals out of it. And I think one of the things of any successful event, and DSO being top on the list of that, is understanding the differences of what those major donors need. And Patrick was talking about the dinner, he was talking about the concert, and really and Denton, I'd love to address this next question to you. So what I love about the DSO Gala is that it's an all-night affair, but it's really it's a thing told in 3 acts. So it's almost like it's a 3-act symphony. Let's just say, for lack of a better term, there's a dinner, then there's a concert, and then there's an after party. So talk a little bit about the secret to creating 3 really successful acts so that the donors are staying the entire night and that they're really having a good time and enjoying themselves.
Yeah, so I think, I've been in events a long time, and I think one of the key successes of that is making sure that each quote unquote act has its own personality, and is clearly defined and is of such a high quality that, attendees won't want to miss out. And I think we have that in 3 different acts. You have hopefully a fabulous dinner where you get to catch up with some of your friends and see folks you haven't seen all summer because of your traveling. And then you go into this amazing concert for the talent of our headliner, like Lang, and you see not only an experience, not only beautiful, but soul-stirring music. And then you come out into the after party and it's fun, and you get to dance the night away and have some light bites and maybe a little coffee, a little beverages along the way, and just having those 3 clearly defined acts throughout.
I'm glad that you're bringing that up. And, the most interesting part is that you all do the dinner first. And I've seen all the different configurations. I think what makes you all stand out is that you all actually start with the dinner, and there's very few, I can't think of another organization that operates at the level you all do that does that. But I think that shows the testament to, I know my guests are going to stay because I've had a really devoted following for many, many years. Because most people, it's I dine and dash. And the fact that your whole, crowd stays the whole night is really, to me, that's what's always made DSO special and kind of stands apart from a lot of other performance arts galas in Texas, is you do a bold risk and it pays off handsomely, every single year. And Denton, you both have actually mentioned, this year's musical performer. So Denton, I'd love to hear from you from an organizational perspective. Talk about the performer, for anyone who's not familiar with this, with Symphony, why this performer is so renowned, and how an organization goes about selecting a concert. Like you were saying earlier, you want to have a different flavor for each part of the night. So I'd love to hear a little bit about the selection process that you all go through in selecting a performer.
Sure. So, Lang is like Patrick was saying, a world-renowned pianist. In addition to that, he's an educator, he's a philanthropist, he is an influential ambassador for the arts in general, while fully embracing technology innovation and remaining relevant throughout his career, dabbling in Disney and other aspects. But I mean, basically, he is the ambassador in bringing new audiences to the arts into this century, and I think that's one of the reasons why he's so exciting to have as a headlining artist of the gala this year. I mean, basically, let's be real, Rob, he is the Taylor Swift of classical music, and we're just so fortunate to have him as our headliner.
Well, I think it's awesome that you've got Ling Ling and you've got Patrick chairing on the same year, where it's kind of this new infusion of, the 21st century of Dallas. You've got someone who's arrived in Dallas in the 21st century, and you've got in Ling Ling, the Taylor Swift of classical music. So it's really cool to see an organization that has such a long-standing following have such a modern take, and that your donors are going to come along, even the legacy ones are going to come along with the, for the journey, because that's really, really, really rare. And, I'd love, for Patrick, I'd love for you to talk a little bit about what are some things that you're looking forward to, but also talk about what guests can expect to experience at this year's DSO Gala.
Well, I can't give away all the secrets because we do want to keep some things surprise. But I would say to what Denton said before in the three acts, they're going to get wowed with the moment they walk in with our cocktail hour. So we've got some great things planned there. It's going to be fun. It's going to be exciting. Yeah, I want to say it, but I can't. It's going to be hard for folks to want to go sit down and have dinner. But when they eventually do sit down and have dinner, they're going to have a great meal. Denton and his staff has been doing this again for some time. They know what our patrons like. It'll have a unique kind of spin to it that will match the theme. But I'm also excited about the opportunity for them to hear and see some of the youth that the gala is supporting through the initiative. So there'll be an opportunity during dinner for that to happen. And then, as mentioned, an incredible concert followed by what I think is going to be the after party of the year. So what folks can expect is they're going to have a great time. They're going to meet some great people. Entertainment's going to be amazing. The food is going to be amazing. It's going to be top notch. They're not going to want to miss this. It's going to be talked about for some time.
Absolutely. And it always is every single year. And, Denton, I want to turn the next question to you. And would you be able to share a little bit about, why the funds that are raised? And the perception is that galas are just a bunch of people that dress up in fancy clothes and go to party, but the money that's raised impacts so many throughout the community. So can you talk a little bit about the ways that the funds raised from this gala will be used to ensure that the DSO can maintain and even further elevate, even more than it already is, its status as a world-class symphony?
Yeah, absolutely. I want to kind of just break down a couple of our educational initiatives because I think we also have so many that it can be like overwhelming. Is the Young Strings basically offers instruments and lessons for students at no cost to the participants, and we are able to help around 250 students this past year basically pursue an education in classical music, and many of them go on to pursue that as a career and their own right. And then the Young Musicians program is at various sites across South Dallas, basically in schools that don't have music programs. And we form orchestras, provide teachers instruments, again, at no cost to these participants. And they come together to form orchestras at various sites. And, these are life-transforming programs, not only for them, but their families. With our Young Strings, we have 100% college acceptance, so it's helping them pursue higher education. We have the Gene R. Johnson Education Center, which is opening later this year at the Meyerson, and that's going to help us broaden our impact. significantly. We have youth concerts, which, provides access to thousands of students across DFW to come to the Morton H. Meyerson Symphony Center, experience classical music. We have the concert truck. It allows us to perform in other areas of Dallas and just provide that exposure of classical music. So, next time you're in North Park and you see a pop-up performance by the DSO, this could be helping to fund that.
That's awesome. And it actually kind of ties back, I'm glad you brought up the programs, and it actually ties back to something Patrick was saying a moment ago about how there will be various performances, from the orchestra DSO company throughout the evening so that the donors can really see where their money is going. And, what the things that Patrick and Denton are both talking about are very symbiotic here, everybody. I mean, it allows donors to see, and especially after COVID, it's really important now more than ever. People want to see where their money's going. And, to be able to see it, whether it's out in the community or within the confines of a gala is, they both can make tremendous impacts and really allow the organization to grow. And I know we're coming up on time here, and I want to reserve this final question for Patrick. And that is, what advice would you give to someone looking to chair their first nonprofit gala?
3 things. First, ask a lot of questions. Get advice. I have been reaching out to those who have done it before, either with the DSO or elsewhere. Hey, how do I do this? How do I engage? What works? Doesn't work? Right? I just want to be so thoughtful of that. And so I would encourage anyone to just ask a lot of questions, right? That's important before you just walk in and do. Second is you got to have a great team, right? So from the organization that you're working with, in this case, have a great companion in Denton and his team, but that includes your honorary chairs, your committee chairs. Those are equally important because, again, those folks have the relationships, they have the experience, and hopefully they have the same passion as you, and they really want to see you succeed, right? So that would be number 2. And then 3, and I think this is critically important, be prepared to be engaged. Laura and I aren't doing this, because of, there's something, we want out of this. Of course, we're honored, to be chosen, but we're really doing it because we believe in the outcome of what the event is going to support. And so there's for us, this level of engagement of, hey, we want to be a part of it. Let us know what we can do. We're committing time. We're committing our resources. We're making asks to other people in our professional and individual network because of that. So, to do it and just kind of then be hands off, I don't know if that would be fun or even ideal. But I would say make sure you're prepared to be fully engaged when you say yes to this commitment.
That is the perfect piece of advice, is for anyone that's saying yes. It's a tremendous time commitment, and I have nothing but the utmost respect to you, Patrick, your wife, and really anyone who chairs an event, because all successful events have, and your 3 answers, asking questions as well. All 3 of those are they're critical things in order to create a successful event. And, I think that's the perfect note, pun intended, to end on. So Denton and Patrick, thank you so much for joining us today. It was a delight talking with both of you. And the 2024 Dallas Symphony Orchestra Gala will be held on September 28th, 2024 at the Morton H. Meyerson Symphony Center in Dallas, Texas. For more information, please visit dallassymphony.org. And that will do it for this episode of Fun and Fundraising. I'm your host, Rob Giardinelli, reminding you to keep it fun, keep it interesting, and your guests will have a great time. Have a great day, everyone, and take care.